Yeah, I'm good. Good.
All right. Hoods up, gents. And here we go.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-core villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another forbidden episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 355, recorded on Sunday, January 23rd, 2020 deuce. Tonight we're talking about another Patreon pick. The movie is Eden Lake from 2008, and it was chosen by none other than Simon H. Thanks for being hard with us, Simon. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. What's up?
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
What's up, brother?
Yeah, what an
That's
appropriate
the best I can do.
bump. I mean, murder at the lake. Yeah, it's pretty appropriate.
And I meant as far as my shit English accent goes, but that's a whole other conversation that I'm sure I'll embarrass myself with later.
You can't win them all. I love it when you do weird little British accents. It's hilarious.
Oh, thanks, governor!
Exactly. That's what I need. I need a lot of that. Thank you. Last but not least, calling in from Jacksonville, Florida, we got our boy, Soju. What's up, man?
What up, it's your boy. I'm the fire starter, twisted fire starter, Stains.
What the fuck was that?
Weird.
That seems very specific, and it's not in my zone. I don't know it.
The first thing, you don't know Prodigy? And it's British.
No, not really.
Oh my lord.
British.
Randy.
It's a British tune.
It's about fire starting.
It's about
yeah,
fire
gotta be.
starting. That's
Silly
what
and
it's like.
simply evil.
Dude, stop this podcast and do yourself a favor and look up Firestarter from the Prodigy if you're not Randy. Randy, you have to stay on.
Yeah, that's true. Don't stop the podcast. Randy.
Okay.
Don't stop.
I'll just hold the fort here real quick.
I've like this random thing that I wanted to bring up real quick. You guys are familiar with Sonny's Barbecue, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sonny's Barbecue. So they have this like goofy thing where they've got this massive like salad bar,
I am fascinated where this could possibly be going.
And on the wall above it, it says Sonny's Garden of Eden. And anytime I hear about, like the Garden of Eden or just, Eden Lake, this movie, I just like, I automatically I recall reading that on the wall, Sonny's Garden of Eden. It's just like the most ridiculous, like Southern Baptist kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It kills me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I think you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't believe you guys don't know this. I don't know.
No, this is.
Can't believe it.
I can't believe you guys don't know a sign over the fucking salad bar at my favorite barbecue spot.
I know you've eaten at Sonny's Barbecue.
Well, many times, but I guess I'm just not as charmed by the eating as you are.
Sonny's Garden of Eden.
I don't know when you have new rugs in your house. You think I noticed the Sonny's sign over the fucking salad bar?
That's true. I could rearrange my entire house and you would walk in and not say a thing.
It's true. It's happened.
Well, anyway, I thought that shit was hilarious, obviously, and it stuck with me for my entire life. I don't know. I had to bring it up. Anyway.
Gloriously relevant. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Simon, for picking this flick. We really do appreciate it. But before we get into the review, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. Here is another reminder. We got our February poll pick posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this February. The theme for February is My Blood-Sucking Valentine, And the movies to vote between are A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, Nosferatu the Vampire, and Shadow of the Vampire.
Bob,
Yo.
we're wrapping up January. How those numbers looking?
Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is definitely walking home with this win. It's looking pretty good.
Oh shit.
Okay. She's been
All
ahead
right.
all week or all month.
Yep. Shadow of the Vampire is, picking up some steam, but I think it would take quite a lot for it to win at this point. Make sure you get your votes in before the end of January. We'll see what we're talking about in February. What's up, Randy?
This is a bit of a tangent, but Meatloaf passed away this week. And
Sure.
I wanted to point out something interesting relating to Nosferatu. That
Okay.
being that his writing partner, Jim Steinman, also wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart. And that song was originally intended to be for a Nosferatu musical in the vein of Phantom of the Opera musical.
Interesting.
So there you go.
badass.
That was a
Huh.
tidbit that my brain needed to spill. So
I need to come up with some random bullshit now. Damn.
Yeah. Garden of Eden.
yeah, this is the digression episode. I think anything to keep us off topic this week.
It's looking that way. What else we got? We just dropped a brand new mini cast this past Friday. If you support us at the $10 level or above on Patreon, you get access to a whole host of Patreon exclusive episodes. And this is a fancy movie. We're talking about A24's Lamb. Juice and I were both on there talking about that. It is a weird movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A24.
Yeah.
So
It's about a lamb child walking around.
yeah.
Got a
Whoa,
lamb.
spoilers,
Whoa,
Bob.
That is-
Whoa, Black Phillip and the Lamb. Whoa, Black Phillip and the
Blam,
Lamb.
blam.
Whoa, Black Phillip.
There you go.
That's
So yeah,
the shit. I would watch that crossover any day.
check
And
out
watch Lamb.
our Lamb mini cast on Patreon, and it's also anywhere you get your podcast. What else we got? I think that's about
There
it.
was a new episode of Let's Get Physical Media that dropped last week.
Right, yeah. Did I talk about that? Well, I'll talk about it again even if I didn't. Yeah, we got a brand new episode of Let's Get Physical Media. Mikey and I,
Single
we
tear is scrolling off of Mikey's face right now.
talked.
I can't believe he forgot me, but he remembered Garden of Eden.
We talk about our December pickups, and we also talk about our top 10 physical releases of 2021. So if you have any interest in collecting Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, etc., check out Let's Get Physical Media anywhere you get your podcasts. I think that's it. You got anything else?
Yeah, we got a ton of stuff actually.
Okay.
YouTube's popping off this month. You've already got 2 new YouTube videos that's exclusive horror content at youtube.com/straight chilling podcast. The first one was Bob's Tiki drink, which we talked about. It was for Scream, and that was the Screamin' and Creamin'. But then we also, since our last episode, dropped a kind of surprise episode because we didn't mention it all last week, was our ranking of the Scream film franchise. So that's all 5 Scream films.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we just kind of went down the list. It's kind of like a top 5 because there's only 5. But we just talked about how we kind of ranked them. Me and Bob did. So that is also on YouTube. And let's see. I think my house is clean with that.
All right. Our houses are clean.
Yeah.
This house is clean.
It's time to get into the main event. We are talking about Eden Lake, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob,
Yo,
I don't see this box.
I don't have this box.
Oh, my
How
Lord.
did you view it?
I know, right? I actually tried to pick it up just by a used copy. It's only on DVD. I think it's got like a Region B locked Blu-ray. But if you want to get it in the States, it's on DVD.
Oh, interesting. European style.
Yeah, and I had to find a secondhand copy. I guess it's somewhat rare, and it's like kind of pricey, so I didn't pick this one up. But it's really easy to find. You can stream this on pretty much anything. Like Andy, I think you said you watched it on Amazon. It's also on Tubi and on
that's where I watched
IMDb TV for free with ads.
I
of
actually
course.
saw it on YouTube, just like a
yeah.
rip on YouTube as well. So
Oh, really?
I know. Today I saw that. I was browsing around and saw that. So it's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
It's just not physical.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to find this one. The movie's from 2008 with a runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes. This was written and directed by James Watkins, and it stars Kelly Riley, Michael Fassbender, and some other kids that were in Skins and stuff. I think Juice will get into some of that later.
Yeah, what's this? I think his name's Jack O'Donnell.
Is it? Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, Jack O'Connell. My
Jack
bad.
O'Connell.
My bad.
Come on.
I know.
Come on. The plot synopsis brought to us by IMDb is as follows. Refusing to let anything spoil their romantic weekend break, a young couple confront a gang of loutish youths with terrifying, brutal consequences. Gentlemen, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
No, I had never heard of it. And I guess it's kind of easy to see why is in our difficulty of sort of finding it. I don't know how like well known this movie is in the States in general. And from the little research I've done, it seems like it's known in the UK, but not so much here. So no, I hadn't seen it. I would maybe say that this fits into the Last House on the Left sort of realm of horror movies. So if that's kind of your jam, you'll probably do okay with this. It's very brutal. So if you're in for that, and it's very senseless, and it's also a huge drag in many ways. So if you're prepared for something like that, if that's what you're looking for, then I would recommend. I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
All right. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting find for me because I'd never heard of it, but it's got like a Michael Fassbender in it. If nothing else, he's a big name. I know Jack O'Connell too, but I'd never heard of this. And I kind of agree with Randy. It's not particularly my favorite brand of horror. It is like such a bummer. I actually do really like things that are kind of got a real life, realistic, gritty type of horror to it. And that's definitely this. Like, it feels very kind of plausible, but it almost is, in my opinion, kind of teetering on that torture porn. It's essentially could be considered like a snuff type of film because
it reminded me of New French Extremity a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that you see is very practical and looks real and is pretty down to earth, and it's like all terrible things happening. So it is a huge bummer. I told Bob last night, I've also been watching Mindhunter, and I watched this, and like at the end of the day, I just like felt bad. Like I was just like, I'm putting too much terrible things into my eyes.
What you do?
Eat it.
Take
Sonny's.
2 Weird Al music videos and call me in the morning.
There you go.
That's
I was thinking like a nice Disney movie or something, but I haven't yet. But I mean, there is definitely an audience for this. I think it's, a cool, like hidden gem kind of find in a way, but it's not something I particularly want to watch again. But if you like kind of more extreme, down to earth horror, then I think you could get into this. Somebody could.
Yeah.
Bob, what about you? Had you ever seen this before? Would you recommend?
No, this was a first time watch for me as well. And I think that's probably why Simon chose it. He picked Butterfly Kisses last time, which was another new watch, first time watch for all of us. And that probably just a generally underseen and underknown movie. And it sounds like this is, kind of fitting that mold as well. I thought this was a great movie. It's relentless is like the best way I could describe it. I think it just is, it had me like pulling my hair out. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm watching this shit. But I think it's extremely successful. It is extremely horrific. It's just not something that you can, throw on casually every couple weeks. This is like a movie I don't necessarily want to watch again. It probably, unless I was like showing it to somebody I thought might really enjoy it. That's really like the only situation I'd probably rewatch it in. I thought this was great. I'd totally recommend watching this movie. It's worth your time for sure.
It's a pretty good recommend from the whole crew, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to give out shouts outs to Simon because there we get hidden gems and solid picks for You Pick the Flick, but so far he's got 2 and neither of them had I heard of, and both of them I was like, hey, that's pretty damn good. So
yeah, I agree.
Solid
like
streak going, Simon.
I like the tack of bringing something that that is lesser known to the front. We love that around here. So thanks, Simon.
Especially with such big names. It's not like this is some obscure, hidden. I mean, it's got like a Michael Fassbender in it.
I mean, I think it's pre his big
Sure,
breakout,
yeah,
but
yeah.
Still, that's a name that
Still,
people
yeah.
will respond to, certainly.
Yeah, so good call, Simon.
Yeah. Yeah, solid recommend. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning and get into the rest of the movie.
Spoiler warning.
All right. I do have the plot synopsis.
Bob, drop that plot synopsis, please.
Here we go.
Short and sweet, I hope.
It's we'll find
It's
out.
so long.
We'll
I
find
just
out.
looked over.
Out.
I can't see the bottom of it.
That's what she said. Nursery school teacher Ginny and her boyfriend Steve take a romantic camping trip to a remote English lakeside. As they walk to the lake, they come across a shy boy collecting bugs named Adam. As they try and relax, they are bothered by a group of 5 loud teens and their dog. They have a brief confrontation before the teens eventually leave. Ginny and Steve wake up the next morning to find their tire has been punctured by a broken bottle the kids left behind. They change the tire and go into town for breakfast. Steve sees a house with a bunch of bikes in the yard, and he believes the bikes belong to the kids and wants to tell their parents what they've done. He walks inside the home, the door's open, and he just walks in uninvited. He's almost caught by one of the kids' fathers, but narrowly escapes. Ginny and Steve then return to the lake for a swim. The teens end up stealing their phones, wallet, keys, and car. Ginny and Steve try to walk back to town and come across the kids having a party in the woods that night. They have another confrontation resulting in Steve stabbing and killing Brett's dog, Bonnie. They get their car back and they try and leave, but the kids chase after them. They wreck the car and Steve is pinned in. Ginny runs off to find help and is unsuccessful. She returns to the car the following morning and sees the kids have tied Steve up, barbed wire, and Brett is forcing each other kid to take turns stabbing him. And Paige is also filming the whole thing so that they can use it for blackmail later if they have to. Ginny uses her Palm Pilot to connect via Bluetooth to Steve's phone to call the cops. The phone rings in Brett's pocket, alerting him to her presence. The kids chase Ginny, allowing Steve to escape. Ginny and Steve meet back up. They find a small shack where Ginny tries to patch Steve's wounds, and she finds the engagement ring that he brought with him. Ginny leaves Steve behind as he's become immobile. She finds power lines and she follows them. She ends up stepping on a huge spike, causing her to scream and alerting the kids to where she is. The little boy Adam from earlier finds her and says that he can get her back to town. This turns out to be a trap, and Adam brings her right back to the gang of kids. They tied Ginny and Steve up and doused them in gasoline. Brett forces Adam to throw the match while Paige films. Steve catches fire and the rope ends up burning through, allowing Ginny to escape. Brett threatens to burn Adam if she doesn't return. He counts to 3 and indeed burns Adam. Ginny finds a map and hides in a disgusting trash bin. One of the younger kids named Cooper finds her and seems like he wants to help her, but her reaction is to stab him in the neck with a piece of broken glass. She ends up holding him afterwards, realizing what she's done. The gang finds Cooper's body and Harry tries to call the cops. Brett beats him to death while Paige films it. Ginny finally finds the road and a passerby picks her up. He says he's going to pick up his little brother. Ginny realizes he's related to one of the kids and steals the car. She drives back into town, wrecks the car in a front yard of a house where there's a party in back. She asks for help and they offer assistance, but the house turns out to be Brett's family's house. The parents find out Ginny's killed Cooper and become enraged. She begs them to call the cops, but they say they look out for their own kind. Brett's father forces Ginny into the shower as we hear her scream. We then see Brett up in his room, deleting all the videos off Paige's phone. He puts on the glasses he stole from Steve, then takes them off as he looks at himself in the mirror. Roll credits. Whew, that is what an uplifting film.
That's the tone.
Feel good movie of the summer.
Gotta bring it back down to earth somehow now.
I love Randy still rocking the shades from the freeze frame.
You know, it's working for me. You know?
Yeah, rocking
is.
Randy. Behind the scenes, as Rob was reading the plot synopsis, I already had some ideas of, like, I think this is going to be a pretty good discussion because as brutal as this movie is, and it's kind of like baseline as it is, not a whole lot of locations or crazy things going on. But I think this brings up a lot of interesting societal debates.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think some of them are interesting and not really explored often in film. There's a lot of touchy things going on here, even that we say are normally pretty brutal for horror films. Like they kill a dog, stab it in the neck. They kill several kids violently. Like even we were talking about, it reminded me of, or Bob said, the new French Extremity. That's not even something they typically dive too far into. Or Randy said that. Sorry, Randy.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Randy said new French Extremity, but you don't even see them torturing or killing a lot of kids.
And why not? Grow some balls, French people.
Damn, Bob. Bob stands alone.
Inside
Yeah.
How do you always bring Godsmack?
I know. I don't ever listen to Godsmack. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I swear I
Okay.
never listen to Godsmack.
But anyways, I don't know. I have at least 2 or 3 kind of like societal things that I don't see a whole lot in film, but I want to,
taboo.
Taboo things. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because here's like my journey with this movie is this. I spent a majority of my time watching this movie thinking, man, this is kind of a like this is really more about the journey. I don't know if there's any subtext at all to this movie. Like I don't know what they're like, if they're actually building towards anything. Maybe this is just one of those, just telling a simple tale sort of thing. But throughout it, I kept getting like this, I had this weird feeling that there was something going on that I needed to like look into more, and I was thinking about it more. And so there are some interpretations of this movie that make it quite controversial, I would say. And I think that was really like kind of sticking in my craw through. By the time I was getting to the end, I was like, there's something weird going on here. And I did some research, and I kind of don't want to get into it just yet because there's plenty of movie to talk about without going into the context of its release. But it's funny that you feel like that this touches on so many things, because to me, I felt like this was like just a little roller coaster ride of a movie up until I got to a certain point. I was like, man, they are definitely harping on something specific here. And, we can get into that shortly maybe. But as far as like the actual like cadence of the film, the ride of the film is very much like a ride. And it's built like one of you guys said that it's so very grounded. Like it's grounded, it's more grounded than like The Strangers, which is lauded for being a very grounded home invasion type of movie by many people, ourselves included sometimes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to that end, I think that it does a great job. Like the characters are like, the fact that I can remember most of these kids' names, even though very few of them have a lot of lines or anything like that, is pretty good. Like it's a small movie that's very contained.
Yeah,
it's very like stripped down, and it is just telling us a story. Like then this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and the intended point or whatever that's underneath the surface is something for you to discover later, which I like. I don't know. And the brutality, man. Can we talk about that? What was the most brutal thing in this movie to you guys? Because I'm having a hard time deciding.
Everything is intense, but there's like 2 scenes that really stick out in my head. The first one is where Fassbender's just being like tortured, like he's tied up and the kids are taking turns stabbing him, and the last kid takes the box cutter and sticks it in his mouth and like cuts his tongue up. It's fucking really difficult to watch. And then the second one is the little kid Cooper getting stabbed in the neck towards the end of it. I was like,
oh really? I thought the fucking Adam kid with his head on fire screaming.
Yeah,
that was a Hereditary
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, to me, because I had it with the subtitles on, and it was just like Adam shrieking, and it was like, and I was like, oh my! And then you get that quick. The thing about this movie, though, is it's easy to see, like this could, I don't know what the budget for this is, but it's easy to see like, hey, this is a really effective low budget-esque horror where you don't need that much going on. There's no kind of crazy effects other than cuts in flesh, which I don't think are that hard to do.
But they are very very well done in this.
Yeah, they are.
Fassbender's wound that they linger on is very hard to look at.
And then the
wound.
kid with the fire, which is done from afar, so it looks good. For what it is. So I don't know. I thought they were pretty effective in what they were doing here, but I don't know. You want to talk about some of these themes or anything else, Bobby? You want?
I definitely do. One thing that, like, as soon as the movie starts and they're like driving to the lake, they're listening to the radio, and I missed some of what they're saying, and I like rewound it, went back and make sure like I could hear everything. And the people on the radio,
I don't remember what they were talking about at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think it's
Subtitles.
actually important, but also like
I had them on, but I just don't remember.
Oh, okay.
It's important to the meaning, I think, but it's easy to skip over it. But they're talking about something called the respect agenda, and how I guess kids were acting out in school, and they created this agenda. And
Tony Blair.
They were forcing parents to take like parenting classes, and like the kids got so out of hand that it got to the point where the schools were like fining the parents if the kids like acted out too many times. They would fine them and stuff. So they were trying to like create different ways to like assist parents in being good parents and like kind of rein these kids in a little bit.
Hold them responsible.
Yeah. And then, we see this movie and these kids are absolutely terrible. And then
nightmares. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like the movie sets this up. And it's important because like you kind of like get the parents in your mind, and then you see these kids, and then when they go back into town, you see some of the parents and like how they behave. And then at the end of the movie, you see more of the parents and how they react and behave. And you get the sense that this is like very much like learned behaviors from these children. They're reacting exactly how they were taught to react. And, just being like very brutal and like unforgiving and untrusting of people that aren't from their town. Like if they don't know you, they don't want to know you. I don't know. I think it's just really commenting on like a lack of good parenting, I think, is at the core of this movie. I think there's some other stuff too, but that was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah, I definitely think that is a core. There's so many parts of this movie that really drive that home. At first, I kind of thought that it was like, hey, if there's anything about this movie that's like a subtext or something, a metaphor or anything like talk, if it's commenting on anything, it's probably like either parenting or like toxic masculinity in some way, something like that, because there's plenty of that going on. Even with Michael Fassbender is like headstrong and asinine as hell throughout this whole movie. On a grounded level, thankfully, but like still, it's like he pushes the envelopes he needs not push, and pays the ultimate price for it. Anyway, but like they show like a mom slapping their child, and the reaction of school teacher at what's the lead's name?
Steve.
Jenny. I wanted to say Abby for some reason, but yeah, Jenny's like. This shows like eye contact made and sort of like, oh, just averting her eyes or whatever. I didn't remember that that's what they were talking about on the radio, but that makes perfect sense. The inclusion of the parents in this clearly is a very, very intentional thing. And it might be the thing that I think kind of like sours me a little bit, because one of the criticisms that I found that was basically like pinpointing what I was touching on that was bothering me about this movie is this feeling that this is a couple of affluent city dwellers coming to a recently gentrified or gentrifying area full of poor kids and poor families, and they are being ruthlessly terrorized by these soulless children, or like this, at least, soulless, just like town. Basically the whole town, there's nobody in this town that's like all that redeeming. Every adult you see is doing something shitty or acting kind of shitty, and so there's some like real conversation to be had about what this movie is saying about like class, like about the underclass and the danger. I feel like the reason I'm wearing this hoodie right now is because they're the kids in this, like it's a common colloquialism to call like a gang of kids hoodies in
hoods,
the UK, as I've come to understand. So to me, that is like replace that word with thug and change the skin color of these kids, and you have a fucking moral panic movie that could have been released in the 60s or something.
Well, that's kind of what I I wanted to touch on, actually. That's one of the things that I was like, a lot of movies aren't really made like this. And one of the things that stuck out to me is a couple Halloweens ago, we covered a movie that came out on Netflix where it was clearly about gentrification, where literally the people who were coming in were affluent white people who happened to be vampires and were sucking the blood out of the neighborhood. It wasn't a great movie, and it was very, very heavy-handed. But
Vampires versus the Bronx.
Yeah, it was becoming more and more popular.
Is that what that was about? All right.
Yeah, to talk about, gentrification. However, okay, so I understand the critique in that way, like a satanic panic type of, these kids or whatever. But what I don't know. What I found interesting though was an in-between of those things. So what I took out from that is not necessarily a push for gentrification, but an equal critique against whatever the opposite of a gentrification kind of is, because Michael Fassbender plans to take his girlfriend there to propose to her. He has been there before. And like the idea of this quaint bed and breakfast in this small town where it's amongst nature and the people are friendly and they welcome you in, where it's clearly not that place anymore. For whatever reason, this place has fallen into an area where it's just implied that it's completely filled with people who like don't give a shit and let these kids run wild and are like have very loose morals and have been in jail a lot and stuff like that, to the point to where the people like aren't, so they're not even the ones who are building the houses on the lake. They're there to enjoy the nature of it all. So kind of the opposite of the taking over the neighborhood, the gentrification. But the idea that they push is this, and it's like, it exists because we talk about it in like the whole like small town, you're an outsider, you don't belong here. And even like it had a ring of truth of like, we take care of our own. It's almost this like in between where it's like, it's not the gentrification, but it's where what it made me think of, honestly, is places like West Virginia that are literally almost just left by society in a way to kind of rot. And where I thought this movie was going, I thought she was actually going to make it to the police, but like the brother who picked her up or whatever, I thought it was going to be one of those situations. Again, I kind of knew where this was going, but I thought it was going to be, again, we take care of our own. This is our place. This is how we take care of it. And kind of like a disintegration of the whole idea of a social contract, where it's like this place just exists and they resent anyone trying to come in and they try to run it as their own, as this kind of lawless piece of land.
Yeah, no, and I think there's definitely something to that. But this is why I'm kind of like I'm kind of split on how I feel about this criticism, because I definitely see it, and I lean towards thinking that it, like, to me, it kind of colors the movie in a bad light, because I mean, it does talk about gentrification, and to your point, like like Michael Fassbender and Jenny, these characters are not like they it doesn't seem like they are particularly enthused by the fact that these things, they're sitting there and talking shit like, we got to enjoy it while we can because they're going to just build these dumb McMansions or whatever, is essentially the tone that they're taking. And they flooded the lake so they could make, lakeside estates for assholes. And, we're not assholes, like, but it doesn't matter because, like you said, like, it's not this movie doesn't, like, that's kind of where the gentrification conversation ends. It's really, to me, kind of it feels like it's hitting this stride where it's like, the problem isn't gentrification. The problem is that these people are animals. Like, these people are terrible people who, no matter how, sympathetic you happen to be towards their problems, they are just as likely to steal your car, eyeball your girlfriend, and maybe fuck you up if you push them.
But do you think that doesn't ring true in any capacity?
No, and that's the thing. Is like that it's not. These are stereotypes, which is the problem. The other problem is that, like, there are violent people in the world that insulate themselves and create these little hidey holes for themselves out of, like you said, sometimes being forgotten by the state, or feeling put upon or whatever. I don't know. Like, so, like, to say that it doesn't have real world correlation is not true. But what seems to be true to me is that like this is these are the people that don't have options, and it feels a little bit shitty to have them put upon by the world around them and then paint them as cruel monsters as a result. And just like, I don't know, to me it feels like they are really painting them as violent people who are given an excuse to be violent, as that fuck their own life up, and like, sure, like they're just shitty. They're just shitty people. Shitty things happen to them, sure, but you can't be sympathetic to these people. That's, I don't know. It feels like there's some of that in there, and it bothers me.
I'm on the same page as Randy, to be honest. It feels like this movie is trying to make a statement about classism, but it's like, it's really just highlighting this like fear of the working class, like in a way that feels like very
Comes from upbringing.
yeah, it feels like very like tacky, and like they're not making any sort of like realizations in this movie of like, okay, this is how we could improve the situation. It's just like, these people are this way and they are terrible, and that's kind of it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Or
not
they're
really
run
like,
by the worst among them because they're the only people that have any power, people that swing their power around.
Yeah,
Which is why you have like a bullying element that I was thinking was toxic masculinity conversation, and it kind of wasn't. Maybe.
See, I took it a different way, and where we've had movies where it doesn't seem to bother you guys as much, and I think it's usually painted in a different light, but I'm seeing it in the same kind of light, where it's almost, you know, it's almost got that feel of a, you know, like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, an isolated thing where these people, you know, yeah, I guess because the dad walks in and he's wearing like painting pants, but other than that, the only thing we really know about these kids is that maybe this Brett teenager has been in jail and his mom seems to be gone. Other than that, like, we actually really don't have
they're abused.
any detail. Yeah, they're abused.
We know that their town is being taken over by rich people. Here's
but
the
it
thing.
kind of like, it kind of has
You're
the
not
same
wrong.
So it kind of had, to me, another thing that I kind of come to is what's that baller ass show, True Detective, where you're
What's
like in
that
the
bummer ass
no baller ass show.
Bummer.
okay.
True
It's
Detective, where you're in the backwoods of New Orleans, and it's just like people kind of make their own rules because you're out in the middle of
Who's going to tell them no?
nowhere. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
No.
Who's going to tell on it and stuff like that. And to me, yeah, I mean, I understand like the criticism because they bring in the idea of the gentrification, but it doesn't color me in such a disgusting kind of way, because I see things like True Detective and I don't think like, oh, look at them really putting upon these people who go to these new church revivals out in the tent. I think like, yeah, there's a ring of truth to what they're saying here, you know? So
well, that to me is the beauty of True Detective, but I don't see that as much here, and that's kind of the thing. Like, you bringing up Texas Chainsaw Massacre is actually a great example. Like, yeah, there's a lot of horror movies that build on this, like fucking, I don't know, there's a million movies that build on like these isolated people don't want anybody trespassing on their land, and they see everybody as an enemy, and they'll do anything they want to you once you make the transgression. So like that exists, but the thing about most of those movies is they're not this grounded. Fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre like is like a dude's like a corpse sucks blood and becomes alive again in that movie.
Hell yeah.
Like, that's not.
It's
like,
also just
Hills Have Eyes. Like, is kind of the same level of like it's up there. Like, it's realistic enough to be gory and effective and visceral, but it's not realistic enough to where you think like this is a societal issue that's happening here.
Right.
It's not about society, really. This movie is very clearly harping on societal issues. And the societal issue that they are choosing to harp on is not so much the gentrification. That's almost like set dressing for these people that have, you know, like may have problems, but all we see of them is that they abuse their kids. They are absentee parents. They have parents in jail. These are things that you could say about a lot of underclass people that we would not feel comfortable critiquing in this way or casting in the role of that movie's villain, at least not in a movie that is this straightforward in what it's in its tone.
That's true.
So
I want to come back to that. I think Bob's got some, but I think I have one more defense to piggyback off of that because of another connection that this film has. But Bob.
I just wanted to add on what we were talking about, Texas Chainsaw, Hills Have Eyes, and stuff like that. Those other movies are really just about like one family And like Randy was kind of touching on this is definitely more of like, it's touching on societal issues as a whole. Like you get a sense of this whole town is this way, even though we're primarily seeing like Brett is the really fucked up, twisted kid, and he's manipulating the other kids. But I mean, they're kids, they're just a group of kids on bikes hanging out in the woods, and they're not like this fucked up mutant family that's been, cannibalizing the people around them because they can't afford to.
They're just kids without morals and with a bad ringleader who learned it from his parents. So it's like, it's not like, and that's the other thing is what I was saying earlier about like bringing in the family, bringing in the parents and harping on that so closely. Like, I understand that, yeah, there is something like not beneficial, but something true to be said about like, like a transgressive personality, a violent personality. Violence trickles down through generations. That's definitely true. And I think that's absolutely fair game and needs to be called out. That's in the toxic masculinity conversation. I would definitely be on board for that. But given the fact that we are given nothing about this family except that they are like cruel, like it's clearly drawing a line where it's like Brett is just like his father bullies his friends into doing horrendous shit just like he does. I don't know, like that to me is like, it doesn't really like work in my opinion. I don't think that it really like, I don't know, I'm losing the thread a little bit.
Shitty parenting.
Yeah, it's like are you saying like to me it almost reads more as there's no helping them. It comes from upbringings. They have shitty parents. They're going to have shitty kids. They're all monsters because of this. That seems to be the point at the end, and not so much like bad parenting.
Kind of true
alone.
Well, so there's a couple more things. I don't want to harp on this the whole time, but it is a great discussion. But I want to make another connection and connect it to one more thing I want to end. So I want to at least, I don't want to touch on it right now, but I want to at least before we finish up, touch on the idea of her actually killing one of the kids. And at the end, one of the mothers is like, they're just kids. And like the idea of self-defense and stuff like that when you're dealing with minors. But before I do that, the connection I have again to this idea, and it's because they bring it up in the movie, of the kind of the disintegration of the social contract, which I think is one of the bigger main themes here, is because the reason I know this actor, Jack O'Connell, is because at this very same time, so in 2007, there was a show that was started in a British show called Skins. And he was in he started in the third season, and he was in third and fourth season of Skins. And the whole idea behind Skins is each 2 seasons so like you'll spend 2 years with a group of friends, and it's their last 2 years in high school. And it was like a big thing, especially in the UK. And it spawned a whole bunch of things, but the idea is you follow these kids around, they're always smoking dope and they're throwing these crazy parties, but they come from all different walks of life. And that really seemed to capture, and it really was like, you see these kids growing up. It really was a coming of age type of story for all of them. But you see where some of them are poor, some of them are rich, but they all are like causing crazy mayhem together. There were things called skin parties where literally people would take over an apartment or a house that was like on vacation or vacant and like completely trash and shit. And so with their introduction at the beginning, I think this was a societal thing for them as well, about the youth and becoming more and more like wild from a wide perspective. Not just like, oh, these lower class kids, but just youth throughout the country, and them not really like knowing like what starts to happen when you can't control youth, where youth becomes like so reckless and destructive that like the society doesn't have an answer for it, because we live by this base rule of like, you're not supposed to sneak into somebody's house and trash it and burn it down and steal their car in the middle, stuff like that. Like, what do you do? And I think they're asking from a societal standpoint.
I don't know that's, I mean, it's not unfair to bring that up by any means, but to me, it's like, this is not the movie that's like, we see no indication of anybody of upper class in this movie, period, besides our 2 main protagonists and the school children that, that she's teaching at the beginning, who are very pleasant and no indication of any, there's no like foreshadowing of like, oh, this kid might be a trouble as well. And he's just not. The only kids that are vilified, the only kids in this movie besides those, are these ones that are capable of some heinous shit. And also, like, the talking point that you're kind of hitting on, the idea, it's like, yeah, it's across the country. Like, that is the moral panic. That is saying, like, you know, these kids, they're running wild. It comes from upbringing. These poor kids, they don't have their parents at home. Their parents are in jail and absentee, and now that leads to some heinous shit, and it causes like this fucking blanket sweep stereotype. Kids are bad. These kids are bad in lower classes. And I don't see this movie as making a broader comment on anything beyond the class that we're talking about.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I wanted to pose the question, if we were able to look at it in a broader sense, because we're not British. And the only like connection I have is, hey, I know the show was huge in Britain at the time, like this very exact time, to the fact where this is where I know the actor from. So if this is actual like art reflects truth, and this was like a crisis going on in the country where this other show is talking about kids, I know it's not in this movie, but from, you know, where this show is talking about kids from all ways of life, you know, like all different religions and sexual orientations, and you know, some of them have rich parents, some of them have no parents or whatever. And that's why I was saying, like, you know, sometimes
you're speaking to intention rather than the text of the movie. Like
well, no, what I'm trying to bring up is like there might be another connection outside of this movie that I'm familiar with. Like one time we brought up when we were talking about Inside. And we said, you know, there were some kind of riots going on outside that we don't know anything about. Yeah. And so I'm trying to say, like, maybe because the news story at the beginning of this movie that clearly like puts a stake in the ground and says like this, something is rooted here. I'm trying to make another connection and pose another question.
See, and that's to me though, what that news report kind of reveals based on what the retread that we did of it is that, you know, this, you know, people who are, let's say that this is a product of prejudice, just for the sake of argument. If that's the case, no politician, no person in power is going to get anywhere trying to muzzle specifically underclass kids. They have to say it's a national problem. And also, in addition to that, like having kids of all walks of life do fucked up shit is expected to some extent. Like to have a few shows that do that, like in our culture, like in America, there's like, look at like fucking Project X and shit. Like there's all kinds of movies of kids doing this sort of thing that are glorifying it and also kind of terrified of it. But it seems like this is the thing, is that from what I've read, there's a whole subgenre of what's called hoodie horror in the UK that is specifically about, you know, raucous kids that can't be stopped. And like, it's not always this grounded. There's like supernatural stuff, all kinds of things will be involved in it. Attack the Block is considered one, even though they are the heroes in that, the hoods in that one. So like, but by and large, it's a heavily criticized genre from what I understand for this reason, because it sort of paints a negative image, or a violent image anyway, of kids in underclasses specifically. And there may be some other kids in the mix, but like in most of these movies, and in this one in particular, certainly it doesn't address that. Like it just doesn't in the text of the movie. So whether or not the intention was there to say that or not, which I'm sure the filmmakers would definitely argue against, I think that it's definitely arguable that it's there, and that it's not counterweighted by any sort of, you know, any of the stuff that you're talking about, not directly anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense what Justin is saying. Like if we, obviously not living in the UK, are just not aware of the other like things going on in their culture and society that would have influenced the creation of this film, like we're going to look at it, you know, through our lens and not have that
absolutely
broader context, which is going to make the movie look a little bit worse.
Big grain of salt all around, because none of us are like entrenched in fucking Anglo culture.
Yeah, and even if I don't think this movie is portraying the lower class in like a great light, it's obviously not. It's not like that big of a ding. I still enjoy the movie for what it is. Mm-hmm. I think there's also some light, like biblical allegories going on here. I don't know exactly what they're going for. Obviously, it's called Eden Lake. The first kid they run into is Adam. And he is manipulated and murdered by these other kids in, you know, the Garden of Eden. I also think it's interesting that like Eden Lake has been like fenced off. Like they put a gate around paradise, so to speak. And like these
paradise.
they paid paradise, put a parking lot.
Oh my lord.
They put a gate around paradise to keep like all the lower class folks out, and only the rich yuppies that are moving in are going to be able to afford to live in paradise. So they took the best part of this town away from the people that were already living there. So I mean, I definitely think there's some commentary about gentrification happening in this movie, but it's light. It's sort of like fringe, on the fringe of this movie here.
It just exists at the beginning alone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they really make like the movie doesn't necessarily have room for it.
Well, and
like,
that's
in
why I
terms of,
was
like, the
wondering
text
if
of the
it
film.
set up that dichotomy where they were saying like, yes, it's bad to pave this off and only allow people who can afford to go there here. Okay, yes, that's bad. And they recognize and say that's bad. But then it was weird where they flipped on its other head, because it's easy to criticize gentrification, and we do it. And everybody say, or like a good majority of people say like, yeah, that's bad. But what was interesting to me was like, well, what if we flip it on the other end and say, well, like, what if, you know, people of not money power, but literally just like power do the same thing, where they literally, like, these people aren't able to enjoy the Garden of Eden, the natural state, because they've just claimed it through sheer dominant power, where when anybody even tries to be like, oh, they popped my tire, and then the local woman's like, you know, gives them the shade, where she's willing to defend the locals, you know, where it's literally where like, okay, it's not through money that these people have claimed this area, but it's through just like sheer brute power that we see at the end. Like, that was the other criticism that I don't feel like you don't get as much of, because it's harder to finesse, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not that like those things exist. Like, it's not. I don't think that this movie is giving these people a pass at all by any means. Like, it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah, and that's
like,
what I found interesting. That's what I found interesting.
And you know, which is like is fair, but like the counterweight isn't there, and that's kind of the biggest problem for me. Is like, if they had a counterweight, like if like Adam, that was a nice swerve within the text of the movie. Seeing that play out was really exciting. It was really heartbreaking. All those things, but if he had been like, you know, the good kid, like a representative of not the lollipop gang, but the good guys, like the people who wouldn't murder somebody just for stepping in the wrong lake, you know, like, then you would have a counterbalance in this community. But this movie goes out of its way to not allow that. Really, everybody.
Well, see, that's what I found. See, that goes to my point though, because Adam. Okay, so we talk about the criticism of gentrification through money. You can only pay to live here. Okay, Adam has to live in this community where he is constantly bullied again through sheer just power, the power that Brett and his gang have to inflict on this community, and then potentially their parents as well, that we see toward the end. So again, it's that same Brett, like where we see Adam Cave, where there might be some semblance of, again, the idea of the social contract or the morality or whatever you want to call it, but it's disintegrated because it's just paying tribute to this power. I have to live in this society. I have to be able to be here, and he's willing to give somebody up in order to almost get a pass himself. And so that critique is
there is a power. There's still there's a microcosm power dynamic at play that we then see in a slightly larger microcosm in the form of his parents. So yeah, there's a power dynamic at play, but and like brute force counts for a lot at the bottom of the heap. But it doesn't count for anything when it comes to who's going to develop this land. If you don't have like capital in the UK or in America to make those sort of big swings that have effects on whole communities instead of like one little boy, like those are not comparable powers, really.
Well, I think it was in the sense of this movie, because it seems like these kids like run this, or this, you know, like this community is willing to give these kids a pass, which then kind of like pays tribute to that power again. So I disagree with you there.
Okay, well, I don't know. I think to me, it's like this movie is going out of its way to make, like, I see somewhat what you're saying. Like people shouldn't be given a pass to do these horrible things, obviously, and this movie doesn't give them that, and it shouldn't. But it just feels like it's really harping on people whose circumstance on the macro scale, on a much larger scale than their hometown, is well out of their control, which is to say everybody. Like, they make their own private decisions in their private communities, just like all of us. And, you know, if they're at the bottom of the heap and we're all pointing them and saying, look what the bottom of the heap does to people, it turns them into monsters. We are actively vilifying a whole class of people by doing that. You know what I mean? So like, I think that having a counterweight and saying like, hey, this isn't like, it's a simple token, and it's not even necessarily the entire thing you need to do necessarily. But the first thing you can do is just be like, hey, not everybody in this town is fucking evil. Not everyone in this town thinks that slapping their kids is the right way to do shit. It's just these people, and these people do exist. They're not like, it's just paint with a smaller brush. You don't have to paint it broadly. And that solves the problem to some extent.
I like that scene in the beginning where you mentioned the woman slapping her child, because like Ginny and Steve sit down at the pub and they're trying to like enjoy a nice quiet evening, and this kid's like, you know, being loud as hell. And Fassbender is like in the middle of saying like, somebody needs to slap that kid. And as he does, the kid gets the shit slapped out of him and
he eats his crow.
Yeah. And yeah, Fassbender kind of like recoils a little bit. Like, you know, you say that, but then when you see it, you're kind of like, ooh, that's not good. Maybe that shouldn't have happened, you know? And you just get a sense of like, yeah, that's how kids are brought up in this town. I think there's another like interesting theme at play in this movie here, that it deals with like the like escalation of commitment that these kids are feeling in the moment. Like, you know, one thing happens that's not that bad, then another thing happens, then nothing happens, then nothing happens. And at a certain point, you feel like you are in too deep to turn the ship around. You're in too deep to, you know, pull the ripcord and abort. Some of the kids towards the end do try to do that, and then Brett just like beats one of them mercilessly. I mean, you know, he beats him to death. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I think that's an interesting like thing about humanity. And I think a lot of people have found themselves in certain situations, obviously not like this dire, but in similar situations where you're like, okay, well, I fucked up a little bit, but I feel like I'm too invested now to turn around. I have to see this thing through, even though it might turn out so much fucking worse in the end. It's an interesting thought.
Fassbender's tale. Yeah. That's the thing, is like Fassbender goes like, he kind of follows the same like logic of his actions that these kids do on some respect. Like, it's not so callous. At least it doesn't start that way. But once the veneer of civility is even slightly tampered with, the social contract is put on display as being fraudulent between these kids and him, he aggresses too. And he's like, I'm not going to be bullied by 12-year-olds. He ends up accidentally stabbing their dog, leading to the murder spree. You know, that would not have happened that way if he had just kept on fucking hoofing it. And I don't know that like, it wouldn't feel good to do that. And it sure as shit wouldn't be fucking fun to have to argue with the kid's parents after the fact or some shit like that. But it's a whole hell of a lot easier to explain, hey, these kids stole my truck, than it is to explain, hey, these kids stole my truck, and then I accidentally killed their dog, and then they started killing each other, and then they killed my husband. Like,
yeah,
you're embroiled in some shit. And then him breaking and entering like for no fucking reason.
I was losing my mind during that.
Nobody watching this movie thought that was a good idea.
No.
And the fact that he did is so like asinine, and like that's where I was like really hitting like, okay, this is about toxic masculinity. This is about like, I gotta be a man, I gotta protect, I gotta go blah 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 blah, all that shit. Even like Jenny at one point says like, oh, be a big man or something like that, kind of like derisively.
Are you a man or a mouse?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to get him to step up and do this shit. I don't know, man. I think that would have been a like an interesting avenue to explore more, rather than what this movie wound up exploring, in my mind.
At what point in this movie would you guys bail? Like, as Fassbender, like you're trying to put this evening together and propose, like, where would you abort?
Here's the thing, when he walks up to them at night, that's stupid, because at this point they literally almost hit his wife, or his girlfriend, with the car. Like, they're literally going to run her over, and the only reason she survives is he pulls her out of the way. So at that point, you have to be like,
dude.
Yeah. And one thing I would like to say, this movie took a ton of swerves that are bold in my opinion, but it worked, and I worked like really surprised me even for a movie that's so grounded. So, obviously I thought the dog was going to come into play as a terror factor, and killing the dog and making that the motivation was a complete surprise to me. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like that's
I was taken
smart.
aback by that too. Yeah, no, it's definitely that is a great emotional catalyst that is very grounded in the style of the rest of the film. I thought that was brilliant as well. I don't know. You said,
Randy, what point would you bail?
Yeah, where would you bail?
Right. Okay. I was like, what was I gonna react to? Yeah. So for me, honestly, like I hate confrontation. Hate it, don't want it. And so for me, like when those kids rolled up and the dog came over, I probably would have like tussled the dog's ears or whatever if you would let me, and just been like, hey guys, how's it going or whatever. And if they acted like dicks and they were playing their music real loud, I'd be like, all right, let's just go fucking down the beach a little bit. And it wouldn't hurt anything to do that. And I don't know, that's just me. I'm a mouse, not a man, I suppose, but that's fine by me. I just don't think that, like, especially with like kids, like you do not know what you're going to get embroiled in, and anybody who is underage is going to have like their statements, especially if there's multiple statements, taken more seriously if something does go down and you have to talk to the police or anything like that. I am not going to put myself in the position to be like, I don't know. I wouldn't put myself in the position to be accused of anything against fucking minors. God damn, no. I worked at a summer camp, and there's like whole days of training on how to not find yourself in a situation where you can be accused of shit. So like, to me, that just rubs me raw. I would have walked away from that loud thing. I would not have walked over. The dog taking a shit and Michael Fassbender looking back and forth, deciding whether or not to do something. That's where I bail, or that's where I at least move down the beach a little bit. And if they want to keep fucking with me, then I just like make my way out, and I'd be like, fuck this. This is not going to be fun. If at bare minimum, I'm out.
Yeah. I would have bailed after my tire popped and I had to change my tire in the fucking woods and be like, fuck this. This is dumb.
Yeah,
also,
that's a good call.
Not a big camper, so probably will never come up.
Yeah. Well, I think they do set that up well to give enough critique to Michael Fassbender as well, because, even, and the girl plays a part in this too, or the woman, Jenny, where she, when they first get in the car, he's obviously trying to make she doesn't know, but he's trying to make a special time where he can propose for her. And her first thing is like, oh, my friend's going to Paris and you're taking me to some, quarry or whatever. So I think they actually do a good enough job, not to say like, this is your fault, but to give, a way to say like, like you said, on both ends, things kind of spiral out of control because of petty things that happen earlier. And then they both kind of come to a head. And so I think that's super smart too. Yeah. Like they did this, they did a lot of things in a very clever kind of way. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know that this movie is like blowing my mind in any one category. You know what I mean? But I think that like, if it was anything, it'd probably be the brutality and the groundedness of it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, Bob, you were going to say something. I think
we got to wrap in the plan. I want to do the one thing that I said we got to come back to. Okay. So the woman starts killing kids.
Yes.
So so Brett beats the one to death. Okay. And burns Adam to death. So those are two kids that, Brett did. But she stabs one in the neck and then hits that girl with her car. Yeah. And then toward the end, it comes up the whole idea of like, I love the statement at the end. They're just children, because we have seen what these children have done. They literally have tortured somebody with barbed wire and box cutters and like they don't know about this kid getting his fucking head caught on fire. So the idea of like they're just children seems laughable, but that poses a very interesting like moral social contract question of like, when you're defending yourself or like, I don't know. What do you guys think
Where
about
do you
this
draw the
woman like killing kids?
That goes, I mean, it's not even like, you could extend that beyond kids. Like at what point is defending yourself lethally? Yeah, it gets because God knows, I think that the states would paint that a pretty broad swath. That's a pretty big Venn diagram.
When you wanna.
Well, and that's why I think that it's
when they're nearby and
it's a British movie. That's why I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's geared by the same thing, which is, to me, it's geared by this. It's fueled by the same problem, which is sort of fear of the underclass and what that can do to not just kids but people. And it's, you know, there are statistics that show that, like, yeah, there's an increase, like less education, less economic opportunity, all those things, they lead to a more violent situation because survival is harder at that level. So I mean, I don't know, to me this is like, that kind of speaks to the point that I was getting at, that doesn't jibe with me, which is it feels dismissive almost of, you know, people that don't act this way and who are just like put upon, and that's it. And their whole lot in life is to be put upon by the world around them and to try and scrape together whatever modicum of power they can in the community that they have to live in. There you have no choice but to live in. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question, Juice. Like, you know, killing anybody is horrible, but if they are going out of their way to murder you, like you do what you get. You got to defend yourself. I mean, you can't just be like, oh, it's a kid.
Boyfriend is dead. Yeah,
it's a kid, so I guess I'll just let myself die.
But she kills and then immediately like is like regretful of it, which you know makes sense for her character. It's totally fine. But like, you know, there's no, you know, she's not a monster. She is a survivalist versus Brett, who is just a monster. His parents, who are monsters. His friends, who are, you know, like less so coercible monsters, let's say. Like I don't know. It's not nearly as kind.
She kind of hits that girl with the car, you know, like maybe she could have stopped, but I don't, you know.
I would have slowed down a little bit at least. But if that girl stops and looks at me like a deer in the headlights after the day or 2 days that she's had,
I might have.
It's kind of tough not to say no. Yeah.
But see, that's the I think that's a fun or not fun, but that's an interesting conversation. Would you kill kids?
Child murder.
Oh yeah. I could kill 30 toddlers in half a minute.
Let's land the plane on that note. That's a hell of a bump right there. All right, let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel?
I thought this was a very interesting movie because it does pose like these, you know, we have had horror movies where kids are the villains before, you know, like Children of the Corn, and what's that one where the kids have the crazy eyes? It's super like old school. The Others, or
no, what is that fucking movie?
Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about though, right?
Village of the Damned, I think.
Village of the Damned.
Yeah. You know, The Omen and shit like that. So this is not completely new territory. But I did find it interesting because they touched on a lot of taboo things that a lot of horror movies don't. And it's weird because I started this by saying, you know, like this isn't necessarily my favorite kind of brand of horror or something that I seek out a lot, but I do actually like New French Extremity for the most part. I think they're telling more interesting, or like, I feel like they're more stylized usually.
Can we call this New British Extremity?
I don't know, hoodie horror apparently.
Yeah.
Extremity.
Yeah. But I don't know. I found so many things interesting about it because I was so familiar with Skins 2, which paints this in a completely different light, which makes you completely sympathetic to the kids, rich or poor or whatever they are. You know, you are following their journey. And so, yeah, you see them do like really fucked up shit, stealing cars and, you know, crashing apartments, but you're really sympathetic to them because you see their journey. Actually, I think it's at some point there is some kind of
torture,
not torture, but
that's kind of like it's a different echelon because they are the villains.
And even the idea of, you know, the killing of the dog and stuff like that. It was just a very interesting movie, and it brought up a lot of just thoughts and ideas that I thought would lead to a good discussion. I think it did. And, you know, I think everybody did a good job acting. I think this movie, for as grounded as it was, still gave me plenty of swerves that I was not expecting. And I think really served the movie really well. In just a couple different ways. I don't know. I was completely surprised when Adam burned. I was when the dog died and they took that thread out so early. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I just found very interesting, you know, and even just not even really showing Michael Fassbender dying, but we didn't really tell him, you know, he just shows back up at the campfire. He's already dead, or campfire, goddamn, showing back up at the fire where he's dead. Like that was an impactful moment, but she doesn't have enough time to even reflect on the fact that he's dead.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting choice, you know, like, yeah, you finally know he's dead, but you also have to survive. And then you got to deal with this kid getting lit on fire. It's just like, this movie was pretty solid, but there were some critiques that I didn't mention. One, some of these shots, especially, I felt like the first 15 minutes or whatever, are blown the fuck out. Like the colors in this bothered the shit out of me. I found it to be like ugly at some point. Like the color, I was like, ugh, this is kind of looking gross. I don't know if y'all have that problem, but I was and it seemed to kind of even out. But at first I was like, oh, this doesn't look great. And let's see, what else did I have some critiques of? I kind of wish, you know, they paint Brett as the big bad, and he is, but there was that one kid with the box cutter too who who kind of like took a chunk out of him. Not the kid with the mouth, but the kid who like went into a sign, kind of like ripped him or whatever. I think this is where he kind of bled to death. That seemed, you know, kind of sadistic too, and maybe even hungered a little more. You know, Brett seemed to like kind of be keeping things under control and like the mastermind. That kid seemed kind of like sick too, but we don't really get anything from that kid. And that was,
I think he's a lower tier of demon in the ranks, but he's not,
we just like,
he's not
really
an unwilling participant like some of the others.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think maybe some things were a little underdeveloped. Maybe if we saw a couple more of the parents, that might have been interesting, or a little bit more of the town, perhaps. That, you know, that might have helped fleshed out some of these ideas a little more. But overall, I was pretty impressed. Another problem, so I don't ever want to watch this movie again. It's so brutal, and it doesn't have enough like style or interesting things going on that I'm like, I really need to revisit that to really get a hold on this. Where a lot of new French extremity movies, I do, you know, like Martyrs, it's got something else higher going on. And so that is a bit of a ding for this movie. I think overall though, I feel like I really could go minus 0.5 from this point, or higher than 0.5 at a couple different times, but I think I'm going to stick with a 3 out of 5.
All right, a 3 from Juice. Let me slide
Bob, get in there. What you think of old Eaton Lake?
Eaton Lake.
Slither in, as they say across the pond.
I really like this movie. I enjoyed watching it, man. I watched it on IMDb TV. And it was free with ads, and the first couple ads I was like, fuck, this is really annoying. But like as the movie actually got into it, I was looking forward to the ad breaks because it gave me like a moment to like breathe and like collect myself, because this movie is just like I said at the start, it's relentless, man. It is a stressful ass movie, but like I enjoyed the roller coaster ride of it. It's got sort of like a Lord of the Flies vibe to it, but it's also, like I said, dealing with some interesting ideas involving like classism and like how to be a good parent and like how to raise children properly, and how important that is, and like how all these like terrible behaviors are just learned, you know, as we are introduced to the parents at the end of the movie and a little bit at the beginning too. The brutality of it is like, they don't linger on it too much, but what they do show is just, it feels so real and like ugly, and like you just like, it doesn't, I don't know, it's the way it's presented is just like so fucking real in a good way anyways. It's not like overblown. Everybody's performance is insanely good. Fassbender does a great job. I think this is really like what's her name, Kelly Riley, the actress. Yeah, Kelly Riley. This is like her movie. That poor woman, I mean, is just covered in mud and blood and just gore by the end of the movie. I mean, she goes all in on this role. She fucking kills it. My hat is seriously off to her. It's just it's not, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of negatives. I will say, like, the classism stuff is a little bit muddy. The character Steve, he goes like well out of his way to like find trouble. I mean, these kids are assholes, no doubt, but like he goes out of his way to fuck with them. And also, like, one of the teen boys just like pulls his dick out earlier in the movie, and it's like kind of weird that that's apparently like a teenager boy's dick we're looking at. It's just a little strange. The rewatchability of this movie is just non-existent. Like, it's fucking great, but I don't know that I could sit through it again. All that said, though, like, I think I'm gonna give this a 4.5. I really, really like this movie.
Damn, that's surprising.
How much? 4?
4.5.
Yeah.
4.5?
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, Randy, how do you feel?
Yeah, so I mean, I've kind of laid out what bothers me about this movie, and it's all subtextual stuff that may just be underbaked. I don't think that's unfair to think. But the story that we got, like, it is an interesting conversation, this class thing, but it's the main thing that I end up focusing on, because to me, this movie tells a very clear story that is not so, I don't think it's as nuanced as maybe it was intended to be, or it's not as nuanced as I would like it to be to justify its existence and some of the other great things about it. Like, as a film, I like this movie quite a lot. It's a very thrilling movie that is very depressing, and like, also, I don't know, like, its groundedness really grabs me. And I think it's like, I don't know, but the look didn't bother me, to Justin's point about the visuals. I didn't notice anyway. But, I did notice that the movie was, at least for the first half of it, seemed pretty by numbers. Like, it was not really breaking a whole lot of new ground with anything. And the only thing that kind of makes it stand out, in my opinion, besides doing a few kind of unique things, is its whole commentary about underclass parents, kids, and violence, and forgotten communities, all that sort of shit. And to me, I think that stuff all put together really does paint a very clear picture of of moral panic, honestly, about these are, like, even the good ones, like our two lead characters, aren't safe from these horrible hoodies, because they're just, they're from a bad situation, and you can feel a little bad. Oh yeah, we're trying to give them, I mean, gentrification's kind of a problem, we understand that, but I mean, these kids, this gentrification is not the real problem. The real problem is these kids, and the real problem that caused these kids is their parents, and those parents are that way because they're assholes, and they're just classless thugs. Like, this is the story that I can't help but see on the subtext of this movie, and it really bothers me, because it makes me like defensive against the point of this movie, which for me certainly undercuts the enjoyment of all the good things about it. So it really makes it hard for me to really embrace this movie, when I don't feel like the filmmakers are making a fair point about society and the people that are most, in need of assistance, being callous, horrifying villains that will fucking rape and murder you if they need to, for their own, if they want, really. Like, it's just kind of unnecessarily cruel to me. But I mean, it's not, I think it could have been salvaged with another pass at the script. I think I don't know. I don't think that this movie, I think that the bones of this movie are a little hollow, but the meat of it, like the actual journey of it, I think is really fucking strong. And I agree with Justin that there's some smart shit in here. Like, using the dog as a catalyst was a smart move. Having the like Bluetooth involvement, things that are at a time, like, this came out in 2008, so it's relatively new technology at the time, and not really understanding how that works or whatever, like little things. The beat for beat, every step of the movie makes a logical, progressive sense, and that's not true of a lot of movies. So I got to give him a lot of credit for that. And I think the acting is mostly capable, if not superb. Even Fassbender isn't given enough to really blow me away in this. So again, that might be a writing thing. Anyway, I'm going to wind this down. So yeah, I have some qualms with it, some pretty significant qualms that kind of damper my enjoyment of it, but it's not a bad movie by any means. In craft terms, it's pretty good. So with that, I'm going to give it a 3.
Right, a 3 from Randy. And we're going to hear from Simon next. Again, this is something new that we just started this year. If you guys do pick a movie for us to review, we encourage you guys to either send an email or a voicemail, kind of giving us a breakdown like we do at the end of our show here and rate it out of 5. So let's hear what Simon has to say about Eden Lake.
All right, Simon sent us an email. He said, "Hey boys, so my thoughts on Eden Lake are it's an overall pretty fantastic thriller movie. I think the content of the film more than pushes it into the horror realm. The two main characters have good chemistry, and although Ginny might not be as strong as an actress as Michael Fassbender, she doesn't drop the ball. She's actually, I was looking at her her filmography. She's been in like quite a bit. She was in Sherlock Holmes, Pride and Prejudice, a lot. All the teenagers manage to be unlikable, which is needed in a film like this, but the deaths of the teens that are trying to help or get fed up with Brett's shit hit you in the feels in the right way. My negatives with the movie are that it just feels too British. The dialogue is almost impossible to understand in some places. Oi, oi. Another negative is the lack of dissent within the group of teens. 1 minute someone is saying how it's going too far and they need to stop, and then with no real conclusion to the conversation, begin chasing Ginny again like nothing happened. Overall, I think the premise, while pretty over the top, never feels unbelievable, especially in today's world. I think they do a good job with the writing of Brett and his dad, which really gives good perspective at how he ended up this way. Could we have a father-son cooter combo this week? The cinematography is solid, and the use of natural lighting in most shots really shows the beauty of the area. Although a few shots are a little overexposed. I think that's kind of what I was.
Yeah.
The acting, besides a few of the teens, is solid, and it definitely hits you in the gut in all the right ways. And the kills and gore are all pretty fantastic and unnerving. So I think I'm going to give this movie a 3.75 out of 5. Hope you enjoyed the film, boys. Keep up the good work. #hard with soju. Thank you, Simon, for that.
You just make that up?
No, didn't make it up.
He goes on to say, JK. Fuck that guy.
Oh, I'm seeing here there's an extra email.
Oh, a PSS. Oh,
he said hell skeet over and over again.
There's 69 hell yeets here, I see.
Oh, he loves the Garden of Eden. Look at that. That's the danger of sending us an email. We can just say shit that you just gonna
have whatever.
Simon, thanks for picking this movie. It was an interesting one to talk about for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. This was a solid pick.
Absolutely. So that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.5. Let's go ahead and jump over to our Rotten Tomatoes segment, see what the critics and users think about Eden Lake.
Kind of stepped on you there, Bob. Sorry.
You're good.
So yeah, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to have these gentlemen guess with the best of their abilities what the critics and user scores are in aggregate on RottenTomatoes.com. So we're going to start with the critics score as we usually do, which has 30 reviews for the critics. So let's start with Juice today. Juice, where do you think that the critics are going to fall on Eden Lake?
This is a tough one. I am really not sure, especially with such a low number of 30.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play it kind of safe and take the comedy number of 69, please.
69 dudes.
Thank you,
69
Randy.
Dudes. All right,
Bob, you think you can beat 69?
There's no comedy numbers left.
Man, that's like exactly where I was thinking, like 66, 68, right around. I'm gonna $1 up you though. I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with a 70.
70. All right.
70. All right. Well, that was a good call. This has an 80%. So Bob's gonna take this one.
Wow.
80% positive. It's not certified, I assume, because of the low number. I don't know what the threshold is, but
yeah,
it is an 80%.
Well,
so congrats to Bob.
Damn.
Hells.
Let's go over to our user score. There are 25,000 plus user scores, significantly more as usual. We'll start with Bob. Bob, where do you think that the users are going to fall on this film?
I think it's going to be a little lower than the critics. just that number is going to drive it down, I think, a little bit. I'll take a 70, please.
70. All right. Again, Juice, where are you going to fall?
Yeah, I'll take it up a little higher and say, I'll take the high end and say 71. Oh, please don't. Please don't.
71.
Oh, me.
Dear little
Please
baby
don't what?
Jesus. Please.
Tell me I chose wrong. I could have chose 69 again.
You chose wrong. You should have chose 69. The
Damn.
correct answer is 66%.
No,
Damn.
69.
So yeah, the critics' consensus
Damn.
reads as
Can I get a
follows: a brutal and effective British hoodie horror that, despite the cliches, stays on the right side of scary.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I mean, there's some
that
cliches.
is scary.
I thought I was going to say on the right side of history. I was like, disagree.
Right side of history.
Anyway, but yeah,
13 years later, people
that's an
will be
interest-
applauding us for this.
it's interesting. You don't see like pretty gory movies like this. I feel like you don't see the
Mhm.
critics coming out over the audience.
That's why,
usually,
yeah, I
this
was
sort
kind of
thing.
surprised,
Yeah.
especially
I
with
was
this
too.
cast. I thought people would dig on it more, but oh well.
Let's
Hell,
read a
Skeet
negative
Sweet
review
from
and
Bob.
see. It's probably not going to be funny for this
Who
movie. I
that
can't imagine it is, but we're going to read one anyway. For all the brutality of the confrontation with knife-wielding, car-nicking local scum, think Stanley knives gouging out tongues, it's never far off ludicrous. That's a negative? Like, that seems like
What?
Yeah.
And it's
None of
not
that
that
seems negative.
ludicrous.
no. He's saying it's never far off
Oh.
ludicrous.
Oh, okay,
So he's
gotcha.
literally like saying this is a positive. I'm going to read
You
an
want some
actual
more?
negative one now.
Yeah.
Technically and aesthetically, Eden Lake is torturous, ridiculous, and bloodily tedious. All right, there we go.
All
There's your
right.
negative.
You know what? Another thing that they kind of subverted my expectations. I thought the dog was going to play more into the terror. I thought there might be a little higher element of sexual harassment, or like
Dude, me
maybe
too.
not quite to rape, but I thought it could easily get
It's
there.
unclear. Like I've seen it speculated that at the end there is some, but it's very much speculation. Like, there's no
Okay,
textually
sure.
speaking. The only thing we see is some binocular wielding by
I gotcha.
our boy Brett. But anyway,
Also to Bob's point, Mike, oh shit, what's the kid's name? The guy who plays Brett, Jack O'Connell, he was 18 the year they filmed this.
Oh, I mean, I know
thank God.
he's
that
not,
wiener was. Whew,
Well, I
okay,
just
we're
wanted
in
to
the
touch
clear
on
for that
it,
wiener.
but
You just
I-
want to touch on that wiener?
in the movie
Touch
though.
on
his
the
character-
stroking.
I don't think his character is 18.
Well, no, okay, yeah, sure,
So that's weird.
sure.
Anyway.
Yeah.
There's a prosthetic.
Thank you,
it's-
Randy.
It's unpleasant regardless.
Let's go ahead and jump into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
Soju, what's our trivia today?
Well, thanks for asking, Randy. The trivia torch has officially been passed. Randy passed it to me. I am
What?
now pawning it over to Rob until
Pawning it
he
over.
then gets tired and it goes back to Randy.
We'll see how long that
Does
takes.
it though?
We'll see. So yeah, to touch on something that Randy was talking about here, some critics have savaged this film, denouncing it as an incitement to class prejudice against working class people in Britain. The Sun condemned the film, saying, "Nasty suggestion that all working class people are thugs," while the Daily Telegraph concluded that this ugly, witless film expresses fear and loathing for ordinary English people. Owen Jones, in his book, Chavs, The Demonization of the Working Class, cites this film at length as an example of media demonizing the proletarian youth via the, quote, chav stereotype. He comments, "Here was a film arguing that the middle classes could no longer live alongside the quasi-bestial lower orders." And I also have like the definition of a chav, because I wanted to make sure.
This is something
everybody
we've
knew what it
talked
was.
about.
This is
Like the British cougar.
Right, exactly.
This
yeah,
is
exactly.
cooter adjacent.
So yeah, it's a British pejorative term used to describe an antisocial lower class youth dressed in sportswear. Chavette is a related term regarding the female chav, and adjectives chavvy, chavish, and chavtastic, which is my personal favorite, are used to describe things associated with chav, such as fashion, slang, etc., etc.
Dude, we've been
I
talking
mean, I
about
wanna make-
Chav for like 10 years.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, since I
Dude.
think since uni.
Since uni. Wow.
That's my British slang.
I heard it
right
once
there.
at hospital.
New British extremity.
Yeah.
No, so like I want to make this perfectly clear. We're not at the cooter segment yet, but I want to make it very clear. There's no class element to being a cooter. You heard that right. Bogans,
Anybody.
maybe.
Anybody
Chavs,
can be-
certainly.
Can
But-
be true.
Bogans, maybe. We're not sure.
My understanding of the bogan culture is that it is heavily steeped in lower class stereotype. So
And what was the German one that Tika let us in on?
Oh,
I don't remember.
De
have to look.
Aussie. I think it was like De Aussie,
Uh,
something like that.
Yeah, the bogan is the
Aussie?
Australian cooter.
De- oh fuck! I gotta look
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah.
That's the
Uh,
closest equivalent. There's no cooter but the cooter though. TM, C, and R.
Another thing Randy was touching on here, Eden Lake has been linked with other films that deal with concerns over, quote, broken Britain and a fear of hoodies, including films such as Harry Brown, The Disappeared, Summer Scars, Outlaw, The Great Ecstasy of Robert Carmichael, Cherry Tree Lane, and Heartless. So yeah, I guess this is like a whole subgenre that I was unfamiliar with. Another bit of trivia here. When Ginny in the movie stares into the mirror before attacking and killing Cooper, you can just make out etched onto the mirror of the old park information board the words, "the most dangerous animal in the forest." And the only other bit of trivia I have on the movie here is the body count is 7 in order. We've got Bonnie the dog, Steve, Adam, Cooper, Harry, Paige, and presumably Ginny at the end. Yeah, that's pretty much all the
You
trivia.
want
I
to
could
know, like,
find.
there's a lot of like connective tissue actually between this movie and A Clockwork Orange. Weirdly,
Yeah,
like-
I can see that.
I don't know. I don't remember that movie well enough to really make the dots connect verbally. But obviously, there's like, you know, rampant street gangs that do really heinous shit for fun and only fun. And it's like I don't know if that movie like. I don't remember enough about that movie to really comment on it, but I think that there's probably that's part enters the conversation certainly. What's interesting about this one is like the fucking the thing with they're talking about like the social programs and all that shit. It's like we've done everything we can do to help, but these people just won't have it. They just won't get
let us
better.
help them.
They just
Why won't they let us help you?
Why won't they let
You're
us
just too
help 'em?
evil to
Why?
help.
We need to take them
This is
down
what-
to the
that's
Garden
an
of
English
Eden.
accent, right?
Yeah. Why won't they let us help them, man?
Gosh,
Why?
Tarnation, why won't they get them kids back into school?
Juice,
I
did you
was,
find it?
yeah, I was, it's DER space ASSI. I believe it's pronounced Dazi.
That Aussie is the German.
It's the German, thanks, Tika. So we've got like Chav, Cooter, Bogan, Dazi.
Yeah.
We've got like, who's from Sweden or something?
Yeah, we have
need to call
a
it.
few listeners in Sweden, in Norway, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Come
If
on,
you guys,
guys.
if you got any other terms that are specific to your location that would expand our cooter vocabulary, feel free to call in or shoot us an email and let us know. We're always excited.
Yeah,
to hear
speaking
more.
of, we should probably explain what a cooter is. What do you guys think?
Do
Yeah,
it.
let's go ahead and get into our cooter of the week.
Straight chillin'.
Cooter of the week!
Juice, what's a chav? Why do we hunt them?
Dude, shouts outs to all the cooter hunters, national cooter hunters who have been,
International,
international, who've been helping us. I believe my buddy Will told us what a chav was back in the day. And then Tika with the Germany and our boy Shane the Mang.
Shane the man.
With Australian bogans. So you too should join the hunt. Let us know what your
Cooter Hunters
country's-
International is calling your name.
Yeah, but here in America, we call them cooters, and a cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, who is going to cooter court this week?
I mean, I think Simon kind of nailed it.
Brett and his dad. Well, yeah, let's start with just
Brett and Brett's dad. Let's start
just
with Brett.
knock it out
Yeah,
at
I think
Brett.
he is he's by far the best candidate in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
mean, we have a ton of evidence on Brett. So
Yeah.
let's go with sexual deviancy, throwing his wang around.
Pulls out his pecker.
Boom.
Pulls out his pecker, uses binoculars to spy glass and peeping Tom on people when plane open. Not good.
Not good.
Hate to see
So those are clear. Put those down as a check.
underage Wang. No thanks.
Yeah.
Wang.
Smug arrogance.
Yeah.
What do we think?
Yeah, through the roof.
Smug arrogance for sure. The only time he doesn't seem arrogant is when his dog is dead.
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah, I mean, he literally he's a fucking asshole on the beach, you know, playing his music really loud, letting his doesn't have his dog on a leash, steals somebody's fucking car. I mean,
Yeah. Pops the tire before he steals it.
yeah, tries to hit somebody with somebody's stolen car.
Yeah.
I think
Also,
he gets a
murder.
Well, that's going to come in at the manipulation.
See, yeah, let's go with the
That's
manipulation because
high,
that's
high,
another
high.
Through the
strong
roof.
category. He's literally a ringleader. He's the fucking boss of this little pretend gang that turns out to be a real gang the minute that he gets his sadistic ways. So, yeah, I mean, he manipulates Adam like crazy. Like that's just the baseline.
He makes all those kids stab Steve and then gets paid to film it so he can blackmail them later if they ever decide to
openly does this, by the way.
Except Paige.
All those kids
didn't
could have
give a
beaten
shit.
this kid's ass.
Yes.
Like I wish all those kids had just beaten Brett's ass.
Yeah.
Well, that was the nice little take, is because the only other guy who was as big as Brett was also the guy who seemed to kind of get into it. And so all the
Yeah.
other ones were kind of smaller. And I like that. I like that little detail as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, manipulation, crazy, literally blackmail. And
See, I don't think.
and the manipulation at the end when he gets his parents.
Oh, yes.
When we don't know exactly what
Oh
he's
my
told
God.
them, but he has sold them a story about her murdering a bunch of kids to where she loses her life because
He says something about his sicko. We heard about your sicko husband. So
yeah.
who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
And then can we talk just briefly going back to arrogance? That last goddamn shot.
True,
fuck
yeah,
that
with the
shot.
sunglasses.
That dude is
yeah.
Yeah.
psycho.
Good call, Randy.
Yeah.
Good call.
But looking at
Doesn't
Tyre,
even-
I think he
okay,
gets a. Go
He
ahead.
doesn't even give a shit about his friends. Are dead.
No.
Yeah.
No, if
three
he-
of
if
them
he-
now.
No, he is a murderer.
Yeah.
Who happens to command a bunch of kids who don't know how to resist properly.
That's nuts.
And that I think that's an interesting fucking Lord of the fucking Flies story that you could have told here a little bit, but instead it got hijacked into that whole thing that I talked about before, in my opinion. Looking at Tyre, I don't see it. I think it's like all these kids, everybody in this movie is dressed pretty normally, I would think.
Hoodies.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I
They're
love a
fine,
good
I
hoodie
guess so,
personally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Patheticness
And
for
then
Brett.
pathetic.
I don't know. I mean, at no point is he found weak, really,
I don't
except
know
for
when
his
his
dog
dad
dying.
smacks
which-
him in the fucking mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he goes upstairs and fucking mean mugs into the fucking. I don't know. I don't think he's bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah, patheticness, not really. Other than he's a pathetic piece of shit human being,
Yeah.
but he's not.
Yeah,
weak,
I mean, he's
weak or-
pathetic in the sense that I hate him.
That's what you get for being poor, Brett.
If you had some money, you would have been a nice kid.
You,
Thanks,
Um,
you
Britain.
have to purchase kindness. It's-
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you're just
that's
lighting kids on fire.
unfortunately kind of true.
Thanks,
Um,
Your Majesty.
You're
For
Yeah.
setting the record
Majesty.
straight.
taking shots at the queen.
I
New
want to take some
British
shots with the
extremity.
queen.
Let's take shots of Malort with the queen.
Hell
Straight
yeah.
challenge comes to
Let's
the
show her
UK.
what America's all about.
Dude, maybe we'll get knighted for this show eventually.
We'll probably.
Oh
be
yeah,
knighted.
that's
We're
what
all
happens
knighted.
with
Oh,
podcast hosts
yeah.
all the time.
Sir Randy Gandy G Landy.
Yeah.
The
Sir Landy.
official title.
Sir
Sir
Spain.
they call me Sir Glandy.
I'm just Sir Bob, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sir Bob.
Sir Babu.
That's
No,
that's
no,
the most.
no, no, no.
Anyway, let's not do this.
I
So yeah,
love
we
how
have
much
three
Bobby's
really
fun.
strong. We have three really strong points of the five the pentagram here
Yeah.
in Brett's
Yeah.
favor. I think that the amount to which they draw attention to his similarity to his dad is maybe I feel like they're transferable almost.
That's
you know what I mean?
Probably,
Yeah.
probably.
And but I think you could add for his father patheticness because he is beating children. So
Yeah.
beats his child, which I think is a pathetic act of a man for a man to do, or anybody to do, really.
I think it proves your
And to
manliness.
hide's murder. Like,
Oh yeah,
a couple of people were like, we gotta call police, we gotta like take it. Like, no, we take care of our old.
Let's murder this woman.
the greater good.
That's good. Yeah,
That's
I
another
think
movie
the
that
father
mentions hoodies.
Yeah, that's true. I think the father-son combo, honestly, it would be pretty applicable here. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're the same character, just 20 years difference or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm down with that. The family.
Simon,
Welcome, boys.
nailed it in one.
Nailed it.
Book 'em.
All righty then. Let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
I'm just gonna make it a habit to step on everything you say.
That's fine. Randy, what you been watching, man?
Ooh, it's been a little while since we've done this, so I do have quite a list stacked up here of things that I really wanted to talk about. All right, so I finished the book, My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I've been bringing up as part of my New Year challenge for myself. So one book in the can, and I liked it quite a bit. It's not like the headiest thing in the world, and it's not necessarily the most inventive, but I do think that when that movie comes out, it stands a pretty good chance of being a lot of fun. I don't know, the whole story centers around like friendship. It's a friendship tale, it's not something that we haven't seen before or heard before or whatever, but it's set in Charleston. It's got some nice like Southern flair. It has some little critiques of, Southern culture around the 80s and, all those sort of things. I like all those things, and it's like heavily invested in just like 80s culture in general and very nostalgic to that. I feel like they're going to overplay that in the movie maybe, but we'll see. I'm excited to see what they do with the film. I watched the newest season of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Have you guys watched it yet?
I have not.
No.
So they spend like something like 5 or 6 episodes in Ireland, as an ongoing arc. And the end of that arc is very they kind of, I don't know if you guys remember a couple seasons ago where Mac does the interpretive dance as he comes out as gay to his father. And it's like the first moment in the entirety of the show that's played totally sincere and totally like straightforward. And it's very like, people were like emotionally breaking down because of this thing. They kind of go for that again a little bit. I won't want to spoil how or with who, but it's like there's an emotional arc to this season of the show that is pretty effective in my opinion. Maybe not quite as effective as that one because it's not completely untreaded territory, but it's fucking good. And like I will say that overall this season is actually maybe the first season I've seen where I'm like, quality might be dipping a little bit. The comedy isn't quite hitting me the same, which
Dude, what season is this though?
Season 15.
Holy
yeah.
shit.
We should all be so lucky. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but like, because I really like, that's one of my favorite things about the show is that it's never really seen a noticeable dip, but I think that might have changed for me. And I don't think that it's not bad. I won't say that it's bad by any means, but it's not as funny as it used to be to me. And maybe it's changing me, but I don't think so. I think it's just that show is having a harder time treading the waters of 2022 or
Randy
2021, I
doesn't
guess.
change.
I don't change. I fear change.
I don't practice Santeria with a shadow.
Sure. Sublime.
Ain't got no balls.
So also I've been watching Zack Stone is Going to Be Famous, the short-lived series, Bo Burnham series from MTV. I'm only about halfway through that, and it's pretty funny. I mean, nothing I think really touches my love of Inside, though on the same level by any means. It's like a whole different echelon, but I like it. It's kind of fun. It's that dude's funny as shit. I got to give it to him. Let's see. I watched a show called How To with John Wilson. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's an HBO show, and it's very bizarre. It's very strange. It's narrated by this guy, John Wilson, and he's almost not in it at all, like physically. He just sort of records himself doing things from his own perspective, POV style, where he wound up like taking a vacation to Cancun and being at spring break. And it's really difficult to describe. In fact, he says so in the trailer that they couldn't figure out how to market it. So he was like, HBO couldn't figure out how to market the show. So I'm going to explain to you what it is. And it's like the episode, I've only seen one episode, and it was how to make small talk. And so he's like, it's just really funny juxtapositions of really bizarre footage he gets of people in New York or wherever else with his voiceover. It's tough to describe. I recommend it though, at least on that first episode. I'm going to keep going with it. I watched Captain America Winter Soldier again, which is one of my favorite Marvel movies out of the bunch. So, not entirely a Marvel hater. I know we have a reputation around the Slack these days, but yeah, I like it. And then the last thing I want to mention is a movie that I greatly enjoyed and was pretty inspiring to me, which is a stop motion animated film on Netflix called The House. Did you watch it, Justin? You're nodding.
That. I saw the trailer, and before you had mentioned like, oh, I love this, I was like, I bet Randy would love the shit out of this. Yeah. And then when you recommended it, I was like, I gotta watch that, and I haven't yet. I want to.
Well, let me tell you, it's not like, I mean, it's not earth-shatteringly good, I wouldn't say, like in terms of like story or whatever, but it's a more or less an anthology. It's really a 3-part miniseries kind of installments about this same house, but the stories don't really interweave beyond that, and they're very, very disparate. I would say that I think that like generally from what I've seen after watching it, critics or whatever tend to agree that the first half hour is the strongest. And buddy, that is one of the best, most effective horrors I've seen in a little bit. And it's like sort of like folktale horror. It's in that Robert Eggers land, in my opinion, where it's not so much in the sense that it's like researching things from the past and like bringing those up, like The Witch or like Lighthouse, and sort of bringing those into the world. But just the tone of it feels kind of like The Shining with a Robert Eggers. Like it's all set in this house. It's about a little girl and her family that move into this giant house. And I don't want to say much more beyond that, but between the stop motion animation and like the art direction of it, the writing of it, it is a supremely creepy short. And the other two are not quite as creepy and not quite as effective, in my opinion. But there is an element of that, especially the second one. The third one is a lot less on the creepy scale. Anyway, all that to say, I really loved it. It was beautiful to look at, and hard recommend from me.
Sweet deal. Juice, what you been watching?
Man, it's been a while. I can't remember exactly what I mentioned, but I finished season 9 of The Simpsons and decided to go backward. So I went to season 8. So those are some good years. I watched Taxi Driver for the first time. Never seen it. I know it's like a classic. But I think I get that movie as far as like people
getting some date ideas.
Referring to that movie, and then was it Leon the Professional? I think I just kind of get those mentionings kind of messed up in my mind. But I finally watched it, and I was I didn't really know what to expect. Honestly, there's some really beautiful, interesting things about it, but overall I was kind of left bothered by, I don't know, the character, quite bothered. It was weird.
You didn't like Travis?
Well, that was, man.
He's an upstanding young man.
Dude, that movie was, I don't know, had me thinking though. The music in that and some of those shots, fucking beautiful, but weird, crazy movie. Fucked my mind. It did. I watched, dude, one night I just could not sleep, and I just pulled up Netflix, and one of the newest things they had added was Snatch, which when I was in fucking uni, I love some damn those movies.
You love some Snatch?
I love some Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Yes. Guy Ritchie early days, that one that's got Andre 3000 in it, Revolver.
Yeah, Rock and Roll.
Yeah, I love those. I
Kiss,
haven't
Kiss,
seen
Bang,
them.
Bang.
He didn't do that one. I think
he didn't do that one. That was very similar
in
tone, though.
But I hadn't seen it since then, and I watched it, and it was fun because a lot of the editing styles and stuff are pretty dated, and you could tell he's really cutting his teeth. But I mean, the actors that are in that it's so fun to see them, in early days. Fucking, what's his name? Brad Pitt. That's the guy. He's in it.
Brad
that was
something. What year was that? Because I mean,
he was big.
Was that the 90s?
Sure. No,
okay, I was gonna say, like, that wasn't a breakout for him.
That was not a breakout for him. But it is like for some, or I don't know. There's some I don't know, fun British actors that are super young at the time.
2000.
Really? Okay. Wow. That was earlier. Now I thought I would have guessed like 2003, which I think is rock and roll maybe. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. It is dated in some ways, but it was in a fun way for me. So I liked seeing it. Again, I watched Mindhunter this week. I like blew through it. I've sat down to watch it again a couple times, but I don't know if I made it all the way through. This time I just like burned through it, and I'm looking
Both
forward.
seasons?
Well, so I did the first season. I'm like 2 episodes into the second season. I do plan on doing a mini cast on the first one, probably the second one too. And kind of like last year, I did finally on True Detective and True Detective 3. So some classic kind of true crime horror that I think is worthy of covering. So I will be doing mini casts on those. I think I mentioned watching The Medium before, so I watched that. I can't remember.
The extra medium.
I'll just stop it at that. Babu, what you been watching, my guy?
Yeah. I've been watching the Righteous Gemstones season 2. It is currently airing on HBO. This is a Danny McBride half-hour comedy, and this is his 3rd show he's done with HBO. He did Eastbound and Down, and then Vice Principals, and now Righteous Gemstones. I feel like each show he does with HBO, it gets better and better. Eastbound and Down was like pretty funny, but it's very like one note, and I got kind of bored of the character of Kenny Powers. Vice Principals was like, I think it was I think it was only 2 seasons, but it's like banging on all cylinders.
They were short too.
Yeah,
they were only like 8 episodes.
Yeah, something like that. But shit is like hilarious, and I feel like they kind of had that arc like start to finish probably mapped out before they started. And Gemstones is like even tighter, and it's got an even bigger cast. Walton Goggins is in this one. It's got that young dude that's from Workaholics, Adam Devine.
Oh,
Adam
yeah.
Devine.
Yeah.
He's in it. John Goodman is in it. It's like it's got an incredible cast, and it's funny as hell. David Gordon Green also like co-created it and directs a lot of the episodes. He might direct all of the episodes. I'm not sure. I would have to double check that.
EGG?
Yeah, from Halloween, Halloween Kills fame. You know, check that shit out. It's hilarious. And I was speaking of Halloween Kills. I got a copy of it on Blu-ray.
Thank God.
And I was watching some of the bonus features.
You don't know what death is.
Mic drop. Watching some of the bonus features, and among them are the alternate ending or the extended ending. And so I put that on. I was curious about it. It's maybe an extra minute at the end. It's not a whole heck of a lot. Basically, after Karen is murdered, Lori's in the hospital. She calls her daughter. Michael picks the phone up, and he's breathing into it, and she hears him breathing, and she's, Laurie Strode's like, Michael, I'm coming for you, and she walks down the hall of the hospital holding a knife in her hand, and the camera sort of like zooms in on the knife and kind of freeze frames, and that's how the movie ends. Which was interesting. I guess that they didn't want to end the movie that way because that is not necessarily the direction Halloween ends is going to head in. So I guess Laurie's not just going to go strike out and immediately hunt down Michael, which is what that would set up. I like how they ended it on the knife freeze frame, though. I thought that was sort of a nice way to end it. That's exactly how they ended Halloween 2018 with Andy Matichek holding the knife in the back of the truck. I thought it was like kind of a cool theme, but they cut it anyways. Interesting enough.
Killed it.
Yeah. What else have I been watching? Oh, Blue Streak. I've been watching Blue Streak.
The chicken or the beef?
Well, Jim, I think it was Jim on Slack. He posted a GIF from Blue Streak.
Damn, dude. That's got Martin Lawrence in there.
Lawrence.
Oh my
And
God.
Luke Wilson.
Yeah. Fuck.
And Dave Chappelle is in it. I forgot Dave
Mhm.
Chappelle was even in this thing. It's from 1999. It's a PG-13
Chappelle show.
comedy. Yeah. And it's Martin Lawrence. He's a thief in the beginning of the movie, and he and his crew they like crack a safe and they steal this giant diamond. And he's about to get caught by the cops, so he hides the diamond in the air duct of a building that's in the middle of being constructed. He goes to jail for however long and eventually gets out. And then he goes back to the building to grab his diamond. And of course, it is now a police station. So he has to like pretend to be a cop so he can walk in there and try and find the diamond that he hid. It's super, super, super silly. It's one of the it's a movie I saw like when it came out back in 1999, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. And I still do. Maybe some of that's nostalgia, but I can get a kick out of this movie. I think it's extremely hilarious. Martin Lawrence is himself, but he also does like some characters, like little character bits in the movie. That's fucking stupid, but in a really good way. I love this movie. Check out Blue Streak for some lighthearted comedic fun that's safe for all your teenagers. Unlike Eaton Lake, definitely don't show that to your teens. That's
good, Eaton Lake.
About all I got. If you're hungry, come on down to Sonny's. We got a Garden of Eden. We got one more segment, and that is, of course, our hotline.
Hotline scream.
We cut a lot of slack on this cast. Sometimes we just let each other just go.
Sometimes you gotta give your boy some room, you know.
Give your boy some room.
We if you are listening, would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on the show. You can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 2 voicemails and 1 email this week, actually. First up, we're going to hear from our boy Jack. Let's hear what he has to say.
Boys, it's Jack. I'm calling again. I haven't called in a few months because, if I'm being honest, I kind of burnt myself out of horror movies for a while. Back in autumn and October, man, I watched so many of those goddamn flicks. I kind of lost all interest in watching them for at least a couple months. I let myself have a little Christmas break from guts and gore and shit. But I'm back. I decided to tune into a couple episodes. I'm sure I missed some classic yucks. But, you know, I'm back now. I listened to your episode on The Thing, John Carpenter. Great episode. Like, honestly, you guys, that was maybe one of your best episodes I've personally listened to. That was fucking incredible. Big props to you guys. I felt like every talking point I had with that movie, you guys covered it. So, A1 shit there. Proud of the boys for coming through in the clutch there and doing it, because that's such an important fucking movie. You guys got to kind of cover all your bases, and you did just that. I saw the new Scream. I was kind of lukewarm on it, kind of like I guess more of a Bob than anyone else. I just kind of, way better than Halloween Kills, though. I thought that movie was dog dude. So, yeah. All in all, pretty good times. Looking forward to, checking you guys out again when I hopefully watch some more releases in 2022 and shit. Randy's asking for book recommendations, horror books. I don't pride myself on having a great taste in horror books, but I like to read them. My favorite Stephen King is Salem's Lot. It's sort of like It, but before It. It's good. And I read this book called Those Across the River by Christopher Buhlman. I think that's how you say his name. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely made me uncomfortable at times, so, Anyway, as for a question for you guys, I think I'll keep it light and actually ask kind of a weird one. What's the last band or artist that you guys got into recently? Like the last one that you were just obsessed with and you were checking out all their stuff and you were like, this band is the shit. I'm intrigued because I feel like you guys don't talk about music a lot. I know you guys are into music. Justin's into music. I know that Bob's a drummer. I am too. So, you could maybe recommend some drummers or something. But yeah, like, what do you guys listen to currently? What's like the band that you're obsessed with the most? So, I'll leave you guys with that. It's good to be back. Keep chilling. Later.
Thanks, Jack.
Good to hear you
that's
again, Jack.
Yeah, man.
high praise for our Thing episode. I'm glad to hear it.
Appreciate that, my guy.
Yeah. Thank you for the book recommendations as well. I'll look into those. The band question is intriguing me. I don't know. Like, okay, so this isn't a band, but I recently on the Slack posted a Spotify playlist that I put together that I called Mom's Minivan playlist, which is all very soft rock from the era in which I would be in the backseat of a minivan. So that would be the early mid 90s to early 2000s maybe, with a smattering of like older stuff in there from the oldie stations. So you got your Sixpence None the Richers, you've got your, I don't know, fucking, I don't know, there's a bunch of shit, Duncan Sheik, just like fucking songs that you forget but somehow live in your brain forever. That's the whole point of it. So I've been listening to that. Other than that, like bands, I don't have a new band that I really found recently that I can think of, but I have been listening. Pup is coming out with a new album, and they just released some more music, and it is fucking great. I love them. If you don't know who Pup is, they're a Canadian punk band who make some of the best fucking music videos in the biz, in my opinion. So go check those out, if nothing else.
Nice. Juice, you got some recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I go through the cycles where, like you said, there are like groups or certain group like bands or whatever where I just have to get everything, and those are pretty few and far in between, and they usually have to do with like, I don't know, times in my life. So I would say over the past 4 or 5 years, the ones that I like kind of did that with, and instead of writing like the hundreds of songs I've collected or whatever, would be like Mac Miller, Brockhampton, St. John, and Black. Those are like the 4 artists where I was just like, I have to hear every song that's ever been done by them, demo or whatever, and ride those a lot. Other than that, I've been really big, like even Randy's, I've been really big on, he posted that song, As I Lay Me Down, and I got in this crazy day where I was just riding the radio on Spotify to that, like, okay, give me all these songs, like, oh, lay fuck, oh god, and then Randy posted that playlist. I was like, this shit is hilarious. But as far as like your specific question of like, I gotta get my hands on everything, there hasn't been anything like within the past 6 months where I've like dived that deep into anything, but those artists over the past few years have been the ones I've been collecting everything up on. Bob,
Yo,
what you been collecting, guy?
Yo.
Yeah, I've got a couple recommendations. There's this band, they just put out their first full-length record last year, so there's not like a ton of stuff to go deep diving, but the band is called Cleopatra. They put out a couple like singles and maybe an EP before that, but the record that came out last year is called Bummer, and I can't stop listening to it start to finish. I love every song on that album, and whatever they put out next, I'll listen to that happily. It's definitely sort of like a heavy rock vibe. It's got like very distorted like bass, and there's like some weird like fuzz effects on the vocals, but I fucking love it. It's so good. There's another one that I just started getting into. The band is called Dead Poets Society, and they put a record out last year that it's just called exclamation mark. It's just an exclamation mark. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's fucking great. It's also like heavy on the rock stuff. They have like a few other records that I haven't gotten into yet, but I plan on it because I like this one so much. So I definitely recommend checking both of those out. Cleopatra and Dead Poet Society.
Bob was bumping that Cleopatra today, and I thought it was Trent Reznor.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I was like, is this Trent Reznor? Is this new Nine Inch Nails? He's got that same kind of effect on his voice, or whatever, that kind of like fuzzy, or whatever. But he had a good range. He sounded just like fucking Trent Reznor.
It's dope. Check it out. Yeah, thanks for calling in, Jack. We got one more voicemail, and it is from Seth. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, what's up, my dudes? This is Seth, or Beandird, or I guess I'd be Bean Mang on the Slack. I just wanted to call. I have to clear my name because apparently you guys wanted to call me out last episode for using GIFs on the Slack. I don't use GIFs. How dare you? That's all I wanted to say. Go call out Hyderberg or Logan. They're the ones that use it more often than I do. I think you asked for resolutions a few weeks ago. I don't usually do them because I don't usually follow through with them, but I think I am trying to get healthier, just like everybody else at the start of the year. yeah, that's about it. For books, I don't have that much time to read, but if I had some to suggest to Randy, I think I would say the Alex Garland books, because he actually directed Ex Machina and Annihilation, but he wrote a few novels as well. That was The Coma, The Tesseract, and The Beach. So you can read the book. It's a lot better than the movie. And what else did we do? What else did you guys ask for? Oh, rate the 5 Cream movies. As much as I want to put 5 above 1, because I feel like I enjoyed it more, by principle, I have to say 1, 5, 4, 2, and 3. And I don't know where the Scream TV series would go. I remember liking it, so it would go between like 2 and 3, maybe over 2. Not sure. And then just so that 3 isn't at the very bottom, I would put like that old Scream mobile game on at the bottom. That shit was trash. And I know you guys don't really promote advertising for these calls, but if you wanted to hear my opinions on it, I do have a podcast, Bean Dub Podcast, and I talk about Scream as well. So if you guys want to cut me off at any point, you feel free.
Actually, he cut himself off. That was the
It
end of the
actually
recording.
just ran out.
You know,
I actually was
I'm
planning before you even mentioned that. He's got a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yeah, he's got some videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
just-
mention. I don't think I realized he had a
look, man. The only reason you're squeaking by with that is because I sullied your good name by suggesting you're a GIF man. And
He's a
I
giffer.
realized after the fact, I was like, did I get that right? And I checked that because I said that. That's on me. And I believe that day it was Brandon B. Stroken who was just gifting the house down that particular
There's
day.
a lot of people with B's in their words.
Yeah, and you know,
Change your
I'm a stupid man. I can't remember things, so you know, apologies, but also free advertising, so we're square.
We got a couple Nates.
Got a whole barrel full of Nates.
We got a few women with the same J. Jacqueline, Jackie. Come on, guys. How are we supposed to keep all this together? But no, thanks for calling in, Mang. I always am looking for his YouTube, and I always leave out like one letter, and it fucks me every time. So sorry about that, my guy.
Is it Bean Mang on YouTube?
It's Beaner.
Bean Derd.
Yeah, Derd. The D. I always leave out the D.
Oh,
Then
you
don't
never
forget
leave
the
out
D.
the D.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha!
Yeah, check out all Seth's stuff, YouTube and podcasts. Show him some love. Thanks for calling, man. Last but not least, we do have an email. This comes to us from Matt S. And he writes in to say, hello, children. From Friday the 13th in September to the new year, I watched every Friday the 13th movie and would like to share some of my overall thoughts with you. Just like the other two franchises of the unholy trinity, Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, the first installment is the best by far, building depth and themes strong enough to be milked for decades. Reversing the Ed Gein structure used for Norman Bates and having the crazy mother lose her son was a stroke of pure cleverness. Looking at the whole series of films, I can't help to compare Friday the 13th to Halloween. The Halloween franchise starts off stronger, but Friday the 13th passes Halloween as a franchise by leaning into the absurdity of themes and situations. Halloween tries to play things straight while also trying to be more over the top with each installment, causing a disjointedness in the later films. Friday the 13th decided to not take itself too seriously, which really helped its middle films, but eventually led to the series' downfall with Jason X. On that note, and unlike Halloween, I believe Friday the 13th benefits heavily from taking on supernatural aspects in the later installments, mostly to do Jason dead before the first film, mostly to do with Jason being dead before the first film ever begins. The supernatural elements lets the audience retcon earlier movies. Even if the story doesn't make total sense, you can now just say, fuck it, it's magic. While the more serious tone of Halloween didn't allow the viewer to do that, with the ill-executed Cult of Thorn. Not much is unbelievable after Jason is a super zombie, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hard with us, Matt. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything he said, with the exception of the first Friday the 13th being the best of the franchise. I would disagree with that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I flip-flop on that.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because it's so different.
Right.
I don't feel
It
like I can
is.
say
It
it.
is. Yeah.
Say
It's
one way
almost
or
like
the
saying like Halloween 3 isn't as good as, I mean, it's like it's its own thing almost.
I mean, Halloween 3 is its own
Halloween
thing.
3 is, but I mean,
No,
I
yeah.
feel like Friday the 13th a lot in that same kind of
True.
way.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, there is no Jason other than like little zombie boy Jason popping out.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not even really like a stereotypical like Friday the 13th movie. Like when you think Friday the 13th, you think of Jason in a hockey mask killing people, and that doesn't happen until
Crazy
part
ways.
3.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I particularly like that one because it's like it has at least a little bit of surprise to it, in my opinion. I
Which
don't think
one?
the other
Which
ones
one are you
really do.
talking
The
about?
first one.
Oh,
The first,
okay.
I mean, it's a
original.
great movie for sure.
Yeah, and that I don't know, that to me carries more weight than, I like seeing Jason run amok as well as much as anybody, but I don't know. There's something about having the smallest amount of substance in the form of a mislead character,
Yeah.
etc., that carries some extra weight for me.
Yeah. It is one of those franchises. I mean, we were talking about Scream and how 5 came out. We liked it so much. But I mean, not a lot of franchises by the 5th one you're like really impressed by anything. But I mean, I will say this about Friday the 13th. 4 and 6 are specific. I haven't seen all the Friday the 13th still. But 4 and 6 are bangers, and for being the 6th in a franchise and being like, man, this is one of the best ones to come out, that's impressive. Halloween isn't doing that shit. That's for damn sure.
We'll see if Scream can pull 6 out of the.
What was the 6th one? Was that Halloween Kills? No, I mean, not Halloween Kills.
What?
Halloween Kills.
Curse of Michael Myers.
Oh, that's the one with Paul Rudd. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I was thinking it
Yeah.
was the rat one. Okay, that's not. Never mind.
Oh no, it's not quite that depth, but it's pretty far down the well at that point.
It is.
Resurrection is part 8. That's what you're thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah. Paul Rudd. What would Paul Rudd do? Yeah. Thanks for
Fuck he
writing in.
wants.
Thanks for writing in, Matt. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on Friday the 13th. I fucking love that franchise. I think that franchise is more successful than both Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, but that's a whole barrel of fish. We don't need to get into all that. We're gonna be back. Yeah.
That was the sound of several fans getting pissed.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, if you want to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Gentlemen, do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out there for next week?
Do y'all?
Do
the top of my head.
you?
Oh, I thought that shit was hilarious about you looking like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
Oh my
Look
God.
Up.
Yeah.
I think, dude.
That
They
shit
started like
was
the Slack channel
cracking
started
me
casting
up.
us in a film,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there like, I got the most wildly diverse batch of possibilities.
I like Ed
like
Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran and like Jonah Hill, and I'm like, oh,
Seth
okay.
Rogen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
The funniest thing was
Pretty interchangeable.
was that dude there. I just looked up Leo Don't Look Up, and there is a shot of him sitting next to a woman. It looks like fucking Bob.
He has Bob's facial hair. So.
I wanted to ask, and the glasses too, and the hair actually is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, do you have like any kind of celebrity?
Did you guys watch that?
I haven't.
Oh, I'm
no,
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna ask about
It's
celebrity
good.
doppelgangers.
Ish.
Like, have you
Yeah.
ever had somebody that people always say like, "Oh my God, you look like that," or whatever? Or
And do you
has
embrace
anybody
it?
ever mistaken you for like a celebrity or
Yeah.
anything? Or I don't know.
Have you
got
ever
any cool
impersonated a
celebrity
celebrity?
stories? Maybe, yeah. Did you win a contest? I don't know. Just doppelgangers. Tell us about your doppelganger. Is the idea I had.
Doppelbangers.
Mine is obviously Idris Elba.
Dude, I was like, yeah, he can play me in the Straight Chillin' movie. That's fine.
Yeah, he's got the accent correct for you and everything.
Oh yeah, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
British. Yeah, call in and let us know about your doppelbangers. We want to hear about them. Celebrity doppelbangers.
Okay, not gonna plumb that.
We're gonna be back next week with a brand new show as always. We're going to be tackling another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by Kelvin C. And the movie is Sallow, or The 120 Days of Sodom from 1970.
Kelvin picked seconds, right?
It's got a reputation, this
I
one.
just saw it. Yeah, so Kelvin, he's picked some good ones before. I mean, Sallow, I know, has a woof reputation.
Those are two Criterion releases he picked back to back.
Nice, though. Yeah, solid, Kelvin. I mean, I'm not
Give us those
completely mad
prestige
about it.
discs, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
no,
see
we'll
what's
see.
going
I
on
am
here.
curious. I feel like I know it's not, but I feel like that's like one of the top tier, like fucked up movies to watch.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I mean, it's just got a reputation, so
yeah.
it's time for us.
We've
to
done
tackle
Martyrs, we've done Serbian Film. I think we got to round out the trio.
I feel like this is the one that's going to take us to the top. You know,
I think I've read a synopsis of this film in the past, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it'll fuck us up. It'll fuck us up. I don't expect a high download rate, but that's all right.
I don't know, man. Sometimes people just want to hear a conversation
That's
about
true.
a fucked up movie.
In
not
lieu of
watch the
watching,
movie.
I guess that's the way to
the
promote it.
Poughkeepsie tapes,
Hey.
like whiz a banger.
The
For
poop
us.
tapes,
The
as
old
you
poops
call them.
tape.
I still haven't seen that one. I guess I
Poopy tapes.
should round that
So
out.
check out Sallow or 120 Days of Sodom, which sounds like a laugh fucking riot, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Who hasn't been there?
Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes and on Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter at STRA_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. And you send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.